Hello, everybody out there, and welcome to another edition of Bolts Breakdown. Brian Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Jay Recher, 95.3 WDAE. We got a lot to talk about today. Before we get into tonight's matchup, it's a rare Monday night game for the Tampa Bay Lightning as they face off against the Devils up in New Jersey. Let's look back at that thriller on Saturday against the Florida Panthers. And you know what? I don't care what their record is, Burnsy. That Panthers team, it just always seems to be a high-scoring affair or an exciting affair. You just don't know what's going to go happen. But the Lightning fall down early 4-1, and then they show that resolve, that championship caliber fortitude that they have, battle all the way back. And then, of course, you know who scores the goal. Braden Point. Just a great performance overall from the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, like you said, whenever the Lightning play in Florida, it seems like they struggle. I don't know if it's the small amount of fans that are in the stands. Did you see some of the pictures from warm-ups? It looked like they didn't even have the doors open yet. I lost Jay for a second.
Hold on.
No, straighten things up.
That better?
There we go. But yeah, Lightning really didn't look like they were that enthusiastic about playing in that game for about 30 minutes or so, and spotted them a 3-goal lead. And I think the goal by Matthew Joseph was a big one. It came like pretty soon after Florida scored that 4th goal, so it gave them a little bit of life. And then they got that power play right before the end of the second period that Kucherov was able to hammer home from his spot. And then 4-3, cutting it to a 1-goal deficit right before the third period, you had a pretty good feeling that the Lightning were maybe feeling it a little bit and had some momentum going at that point. And you just thought where they were in the standings, where Florida is right now, how down they kind of are. You felt like the Lightning should be able to pull a point out of that one. And to get 2, that was pretty good. Like you said, good resolve, good showing from them as far as being able to come back from a 3-goal deficit. I don't know that they've come back from a 3-goal deficit yet this year. So.
They haven't had many.
Yeah, they haven't been down that many that often. Usually when it happens, it's like a tie game going into the third, then they give up 4 goals and they end up losing by 3 or 4, something like that. So we've seen this Lightning team. They can do it different ways. They can jump out to a lead and just kind of bludgeon you to death. They can get behind and come back. It's pretty good. What we've seen from this team, it's pretty good that they can win in a lot of different ways, and we've seen that so far this year.
Without a doubt. And you guys know how we do it here on Bolts Breakdown. It's very interactive. We want to hear from you. Where are you watching Bolts Breakdown from today? Put it at the bottom of the screen. Let us know, and we will shout you out on the air. Also, share this on your Facebook. We're trying to spread this out. We're trying to spread that thunder. We want to be the thunder all over the world. Forget about the country, all over the world. So share it on your Facebook. Let us know where you're watching from and who you think is going to score the first goal tonight. But you're right, though, man. With this Lightning team, even though they're down 4-1, you're not worried.
With the way they score goals, you know that they can get goals. It's just a matter of can they get that one that sparks the next one. Sometimes they get in and they have games. It's going to be it's an 82-game regular season. You're going to have games where it just doesn't happen for you. I'm thinking like that Buffalo game back in Buffalo where they had so many good opportunities and they just couldn't get that one. They had 1 goal, but they couldn't really get that one that sparked the offense. For 2 or 3 more. So I think once they got that first one in Florida, that was the spark that they needed to kind of get going there.
Let's get to some of your questions and shout-outs here. Thank you, guys. Steve Whipple from Whipple. Love that name. From out in Riverview. Dana Andres, who watches all the time from St. Pete. Thank you, Dana. Let's see. There's one back here. Kai Tyson from Germany. Awesome. We love all of our fans overseas. Yoko Taylor, hi, guys. Good to see you guys from Jacksonville. Gina, we're watching from home. Awesome. Tim Klein wants to know, is it starting to be concerning that Stamkos appears to be struggling offensively? I don't know if I agree with that sentiment. I think he's had a couple of good games. He's not scoring at the 50, 60-goal pace that we saw early in his career. But I like how he's setting everybody else up. He seems to be in control. I don't look at him and think that he's playing poorly. He's just not. It's hard though, man, because Kucherov scores a lot. So does Braden Point. That line is just hot right now, and I think Stamkos is helping in other ways. I think he's passing much better, and I think he's better on draws and faceoffs than he's been. Probably
he's at like
his entire
57% right
That's
now.
Crazy,
I mean, he's
man.
By far the best on the Lightning right now in faceoff draws, and you look and he's been kind of quiet. For Steven Stamkos, but he's 3rd on the team for scoring. I think more than anything, it's the goals. People expect Stammer to lead the team for goals. They want to see the 40-goal seasons year in and year out. I think his game has evolved to the point where he's not that just a shooter. He's more of a he's more of a playmaker. I do agree that first line needs to get a little bit on track.
They're changing it up, though. I mean, you
Yeah,
put Matthew Joseph up there.
They've had some different elements on it. They've had Andre Palat up there. Yanni Gordy's gone a couple games now without registering a point, and that's pretty unusual for him. There was a point maybe 4 or 5 games ago before these lines got all mixed up where he was pretty much putting up a point every other game. Right? Yeah. He had, as far as guys that were recording points, and like he had 15 and 20 games, he had more points, or he had more games with the point than anybody else in the Lightning, even more than Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov, because they've been putting up 3 or 4 in one game, and then they go 2 games without a point. So Yanni Gourde was the most consistent scorer. He hasn't been scoring in the last 3 or 4 games or so. So that's one thing that's maybe a little bit concerning for me, that top line hasn't really gotten going. Maybe you'd like to see, but it doesn't really matter when you have the second line that's going as well as it is. Alex Killorn's contributed a couple goals here in these last couple games to help that third line out. The fourth line is getting production from Cedric Paquette. Already has 6 goals on the year. That's more than he had last year. He had 5. The year before that, he had 4. The year before that, he had 6. So he's already tied his goals from 3 years ago. I think he had 12 his rookie year. So maybe he's like banging on the door of that by the end of the season. He might be going for career high.
Let's ask a question to all you listeners and all your viewers out there for Bolts Breakdown. Who do you think is the most improved player on this Tampa Bay Lightning team this year? Shout out to, Megan in Ontario, Jordana in Hollywood. I know we saw somebody else from British Columbia as well. Thank you all for watching. We really do appreciate you. But I think the answer, and again, we'd love to hear from you guys, I think it's probably Cedric Paquette. I mean, you hear Phil Esposito talk about it. If you don't, you're missing out. You got to listen to Phil. He's one of the best. He's just so entertaining, and we have him every Thursday at 5:05 right here on 95.3 WDAE. But I think Cedric Paquette may be the answer to that question. I mean, you know he's tough. You know at times he can score, but I feel like this year he's taken his physicality to the next level. Yep. He's taken his scoring to the next level. I think Cedric Paquette may be the answer. Is there anybody else you could think of who's probably the most improved this year? Maybe Gourde? I mean, he had a good year last year, too.
I think he's going at pretty much the same pace. I would say maybe Braden Coburn, you know, like what we saw from the end of last year going into this year. I think he's maintained that pace and kept it going, but Cedric Paquette, you look at, it's not just the goals that he's been able to put up here in the last few games, but he's like 4th in the NHL for hits right now. Since like October 30th, he's 2nd in the league for hits. He almost has as many hits now at this point in the season that he did all of last year. That's like you said, he's really increased that physical play. He's been good in the face-off circle as well. He's one of the Lightning's leaders for face-off opportunities, for face-off wins. He's up there for win percentage. He's over 50%. He's doing a lot of the little things, a lot of the intangibles that you need out of those fourth-line guys. And he's contributed some goals here, and some big goals in the last couple of games. He had the game winner against Buffalo. He had the game-tying goal the other night against Florida. He's been a very much improved player for the Lightning this season.
You know, it's funny. Dana says right there, he goes to the net. And it's funny because at times you'll see a guy and he kind of goes and he's along the side there, and they'll either trying to peel back and look for a pass. Not him. Every single time he gets the puck and he's kind of coming down the side, he always goes to the front of the net. And I think that is kind of worrisome, not just for the goaltender, but for the defense as well, knowing that a guy's going to go to the net with some speed. He's a guy that's tough. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there. And a lot of times, you're putting yourself in a position to score or create a scoring chance for somebody else. I think Adam Ernie's probably another guy you can put on that list as well, where last year he was kind of a fringe guy, and now it's even tougher and tougher to take him out of the lineup because of how well he's played. I know it's tough with Andre Palat, and it's kind of a numbers game, but you look at Adam Ernie, he isn't not in this lineup because he hasn't done the job when he's been called on. He's been really good this year for this team, but when you have that many good forwards, Bryan, it's tough to crack this lineup.
Yeah, and just going back to Paquette for a little bit, he's been that agitator, too.
Yeah,
in the Nashville game, or the what was the game? The Buffalo game.
Buffalo, yeah.
I think it was at the end of the first period where there were a couple guys wanted to take his head off at the end of that one.
And one of the other guys, Bogosian and Beaulieu,
Yeah, and the Lightning got a power play out of that coming into the second period. And then again against Florida, there were a couple times where he got under the skin of some people. And he draws penalties that way, and he gets guys out of their game because they're focused so much on trying to chase down Cedric Paquette and deliver a big hit on him or do something after the whistle that it takes them out of their structure a little bit. So he's been a really, really good player for the Lightning. And you look where he is for goals. He's like tied for 6th on the team. He's like right behind Steven Stamkos on the goal chart right now for the Lightning.
We also had another question on there. What was the setback for Anton Stralman? You see him walking around during practice. They say it's an upper body injury. I haven't heard anything new. He should probably get evaluated because last week he got evaluated and they said there was going to be another week.
Another week.
Probably the next day or two.
December 5th when he's supposed to be reevaluated again. So, hopefully all things, they get some good news from that reevaluation and he can get back in there. He hasn't been skating a lot from what I can see, so it's probably going to take him a few more games once he does get the all clear that he can resume his normal activities. Probably it's going to take another day or two before he can get the conditioning back up to where it needs to be so he can play in a game. But kudos to the blue line for stepping up and not really missing a beat with him out, and for Ryan McDonough for coming back from that pretty bad hit in the Buffalo game, and it looked like he might miss some time, and he was able to get right back into it against Florida. Girardi too. Both those guys are just warriors. But you look at who led the team for time on ice against Florida. It was Ryan McDonough. He was out there blocking four shots again. So that guy, no regard for his own personal welfare. He just wants to go out and win games.
How realistic is it, Bernsey, that he'll get Norris Trophy consideration this year? Because it seems like with awards in the NHL, you have to. We've talked about this before. You have to get into the conversation before you become the conversation. You saw that with Hetty. I think you saw it last year with Vazzy. I don't know if a guy ever comes out of nowhere to win a Norris or comes out of nowhere to win a Vezina. You kind of have to be in the conversation. But this may be a little bit of a different conversation because Ryan McDonough has all-star experience. He's got big market experience.
Yeah.
So people know that he's one of the top defensemen in the league. But now watching, Hedman missing time with injury and this team not missing a beat, and you're looking at some of the other defensemen in the league. I love the way Morgan Riley's played this year, but nobody else, Subban's been hurt. Brent Burns has been good. Carlson's been good, but I think they take some of their
no one's the big names aren't really standing out right now.
Yeah, exactly. Weber just came back. Duncan Keith, Drew Doughty's always in the conversation. But I when a lot of people say Ryan McDonough Norris Trophy I agree. But a lot of other years I'd be like, well, this guy, well, that guy. I don't know, Bernsey. I mean, if he keeps playing well, first off, I think he should make the All-Star team.
I think so too, yeah.
Secondly, if he keeps playing this well and you got to score, then that's the big thing in the Norris Trophy. That's the thing that people are going to look at. It's hard to argue against it. I mean, especially if the Lightning continue to play well, continue to be at the top of the standings. Ryan McDonough, and I think this is something possibly we can help pound the drum here on Bolt's Breakdown, Ryan McDonough for Norris doesn't seem so far-fetched.
Yeah, I think the thing that's going to hurt him is Victor Hedman winning last year, and people are just going to automatically assume if there's a candidate for the Norris Trophy from the Tampa Bay Lightning, it's going to be Victor Hedman. So I think that might take away some of the attention. McDonough's probably going to fly under the radar a little bit. I was looking at NHL.com. They did their projections where they had editors and writers do kind of their projections for who's going to make the All-Star team. They only had Nikita Kucherov from the Lightning making it. There was no McDonough. There was no Braden Point, which for me that's a no-brainer right there. Yeah. I don't know how Braden Point doesn't make this NHL All-Star
The number one team in the NHL has one All-Star.
And he's like third, fourth in the league for scoring. He's a Hart Trophy candidate, but he's not going to make the All-Star team. I don't know. But I think for me, there's three no-brainers. It's Point, Kucherov, and McDonough. Yeah. I think those three should make it from the Lightning. I don't think Vazzy's going to make it. I think, obviously, if he'd stayed healthy, he'd be one of those guys as well, but he just missed too many games. Had been kind of in the same boat. Yeah. He has the name recognition, but I feel like he missed too many games and hasn't been scoring with the regularity that we're used to seeing from him in the last couple of years. So I don't know what the omission was for Braden Point. Didn't even get a mention in the guys that maybe could have made it but didn't make it. I don't know what they were thinking there.
Yeah, it's crazy because you see a lot of stories around the NHL where people think that he's a top 5 center in the game right now. So for them, sometimes those websites get a little wonky when it comes to voting and they miss kind of the most obvious people out there. Brian Burns, beat writer for TampaBayLightning.com. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at BBurnsNHL. Jay Recher, 95.3 WDAE. Follow me on Twitter at Jay Recher. Let's look forward to tonight's game. Bernsey playing against a familiar foe, the New Jersey Devils. We'll go see Brian Boyle up there at the Rock, the Prudential Center. Give me some 3 keys to victory tonight for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, the Lightning have had a pretty good run against New Jersey here this season. They beat them, I think it was 8-3 that first
Big
time,
game,
and then 5-2 the next time. So they're outscoring them 15-5.
13-5.
13-5. Thanks for the math.
What's doing the math for you, folks?
13-5. I didn't use. I got to use all my toes for that one. Fingers and toes.
We got 13 toes. We got a different subject to talk about today on Bolt's Breakdown.
Whatever it is, they're scoring a heck of a lot of goals.
Yeah, they got a lot of goals. They got a lot more than the other guys.
So pretty good success for Lightning. If you look, they've scored 3 of those goals on the power play in those first 2 games. So I think the power play, again, is going to be a big key. New Jersey's pretty good on the penalty kill at home, not so much on the road, but at home they're pretty strong. So I think if the Lightning can get another power play goal in this game, I think that'll bode well for their ability to win. Second for me is you look at the contributions the Lightning have been getting from the blue line, and we talked about Ryan McDonough a little bit earlier, Victor Hedman, but you saw Braden Coburn get on the score sheet the last game. You saw Mikhail Sergachev get on there. You saw Dan Girardi. I mean, they're getting contributions 1 through 6 on the blue line. You look at the Lightning, they're third in the league for blue line scoring, just 2 points behind Nashville, a point behind Ottawa. So they're getting scoring from the defense, and when the defense is engaged in the game and they're kind of driving that offense a little bit, I think it really bodes well for how the Lightning play and how their ability to unlock teams and put up goals in bunches. So I just want to see a continuation of that. I want to see those defensemen continue to contribute the way they have been, especially in the last few games. And then third for me, I don't know if it's going to happen tonight, but I want to see some rest for Louis Domingue. I really feel like it's 10 consecutive starts, and he's been good. He's made the big saves when he's been counted on, but he's probably had 1 or 2 goals in each one of those games here of late that he'd probably like to have back. It seems like at the start of the game, it maybe takes him a little bit to get into it. I don't know if fatigue is an issue there, if that's part of it, but what you can say about Louis Domingue, when the game's tied or when it's coming down the stretch, he's made some really, really key saves that have kept the Lightning in the game and allowed them to prevail in some of these games. So you like where the win totals are right now, not necessarily the goals allowed in each game. We saw Eddie Pasquale come up yesterday. He had 2 really good starts in Syracuse, stopped 69 of the 76 shots that he faced, got a win and an overtime loss in those 2 starts. I don't know if he plays tonight. It might be asking a little much to have him play 3 nights in 4 days. Maybe he goes tomorrow in Detroit. It might be Domingue today, but I think one of those 2 starts will be Pasquale. He should make his NHL debut in one of those 2 starts, and just give Louis Domingue a little bit of a breather here because these starts are starting to pile up for him.
Yeah, you look at Domingue, in all 10 of these starts, he's given up 2 or more goals. And in 7 of the 10 games, he's given up 3 or more goals. That's a lot. It's a lot. And I think maybe if the Lightning weren't so proficient offensively, we'd be having a different conversation about Louis Domingue. But you're right. He seems to give up kind of a goal that he wishes he could have back, but he also comes up big when they need him to. So maybe a little bit of a high-wire act, but this is what you need from your backup goaltender. You need your backup goaltender to just kind of tread water a little bit, keep you in games, not give up too many goals. He's given up goals, but not too many, and still giving the team a chance to win. I think that's 7 of their last 9 they've won. Not too bad with your backup goaltender between the pipes. Not many other teams in the NHL could say that. Again, let us know where you're watching Bolts Breakdown from. Put it there at the bottom of the screen. Also, share this on your Facebook. Tell us where you're watching, say the word shared, and who you think is going to score the first goal tonight, and we will shout you out. My one guy to watch on the New Jersey Devils, of course, it's got to be Brian Boyle. It's one of those things when every time you see Boiler on the ice, it's like, oh, it's great to see you, and then he's trying to tick off somebody on the line. Doing his job, but not only offensively, but a scrap. He likes to pick on Sergachev and Sorelli and some of those younger guys. This Tampa Bay Lightning team needs to stay composed, not try to get the Devils did that during some of the playoff games last year where it got late in the game. They try to drag the Lightning down to kind of a little brouhaha after the game and trying to muddy it up a little bit, and the Lightning can't afford to do that. They need to make sure that they stay above that, they rise above that, and focus on making sure they come out on top because they have a lot more to lose than the Devils do. The Devils are in last place in the Eastern Conference. The Lightning are in first place, I think, still, right? In the Eastern Conference?
First place overall.
Yeah, so you don't want to go into that matchup right there and try to, and you got a game tomorrow night against Detroit. You want everybody to be there. You want everybody to be healthy. No stupid penalties or anything like that. So making sure that you're taking care of business, focus on the scoreboard, not on extracurricular activities like you saw in that Buffalo game. Nathan Kowalski watching from Detroit, Michigan. Thank you so much. The Bolts will be there tomorrow night. We'll take another question or two with Bernsey and I. They morning skate today?
Yeah.
Probably right now, probably as we're
so she starts at 11:30.
Yeah, so we'll have a better idea in the next couple hours of who's going to start tonight. I'm with you though, Bernsey. I think Domingue gets the start tonight, and then tomorrow against Detroit, who is playing probably better than many people thought, but still kind of in the middle to the lower pack of the Atlantic Division. I think tomorrow night is when you get Pasquale a shot. Why the whole thing with Pasquale and Ingram? You call Ingram up, you put Pasquale back down. People thought that, all right, if Ingram gets called up, he's going to get the start, and he deserves it because of how well he's played for the Crunch. Why the whole back and forth?
Well, Pasquale's played well for the Crunch too, and the reason Ingram's playing so well for the Crunch is that he's had an opportunity to play consecutive games. He's had this stretch now for the last 2 or 3 weeks where it's just been him. getting those starts in Syracuse because Pasquale has been up here backing up Domingue while Andre Vasilevsky's out. So I think both players have played well. Neither one has gotten an NHL game yet. I think, if you're looking at that, you're looking at Pasquale being more of a veteran guy. He's bounced around the AHL for a little bit. Did really well for the Syracuse Crunch last year. I think he deserves this this start. I think he deserves to make his NHL debut. Ingram probably needs a little bit more seasoning down in Syracuse before you're ready to bring him up. Both deserve to get a start, but I think if you're looking at the two, Pasquale maybe is a little bit more deserving than Ingram. Just because of his tenure in the league, being around for a little bit longer. Cool. Played really well last year, and he's done a really good job of helping to mentor Connor Ingram in that kind of goaltending duo that they have down in Syracuse. So maybe we see Connor Ingram at some point later in the season if he's needed, but I think this is Pasquale's to go.
Bernsey, there was a question earlier on we didn't get to, but I see a lot of stuff online with the Kings and the Lightning. A lot of scouts at each other's games. What kind of pairing could that be? I wouldn't think. Some people are like, "What about Drew Doughty?" I'm like, "No, not happening." But
maybe they get Eric Chernak from the Kings.
That's right. That's right. So, do you see that being a pair for a trade? Any players that stick out to you, or is this just one of those things where both teams are doing their due diligence, making sure they're keeping their eye on a team from the opposite coast? Yeah,
sometimes teams do that, and sometimes you just see teams like a lot of ex-NHL guys, a lot of scouts live in this area, live here, Sarasota, on down the coast into Naples. So a lot of times you see guys, like there's a guy from the Winnipeg Jets that's here pretty much every game because he lives in Sarasota. He has a boat that's docked outside of the Marriott down next to the arena.
There you go.
So he's going to be here for every game. So sometimes you can read a little bit too much into that. I'm not sure if there's anything brewing between the Kings and the Lightning. It would certainly make a little bit of sense the way the Los Angeles kind of struggled here. You got to figure they're going to be sellers at the trade deadline, or at least want to unload some of their assets and try to build towards the future. So I don't know who the Lightning. We've talked about this before. Who do you even need to add to this team to really? For me, it's like maybe like a third or fourth line guy. I've talked about Devontae Smith-Pelly, who is really I felt like kind of changed. Some of those games in the Eastern Conference Final, I feel like he was a difference maker as a third or fourth liner. Maybe someone like that you can pick up and just kind of add to what you have depth-wise as a forward. But we've talked about maybe the need for a defenseman, but I like the way the team is constructed right now. I like the way the defensive pairings are constructed. We're already dealing with the logjam at the forward spot where when you get Andre Palat back, you don't know what to do with Adam Ernie or someone else is going to have to sit. I just don't know that this team really needs anybody.
I wonder if they go get like a power forward. You know what I mean? A guy that can stand in front of the net on the power play, because you have JT Miller there, but they seem to kind of be moving him, in and out there. And at times I think you get a little bit tougher down low. I'd love to see a guy like Jeff Carter on this Lightning team. I think he brings something that they don't have, a bigger right-handed forward that has a big-time shot. He's a guy that can score. He has experience scoring big-time goals in the playoffs. Yeah. He's a guy who can put his big old butt in front of the net, and it's going to be tough for him to move. I think if you go get anybody, I think Jeff Carter is the guy. That's what the Kings did years ago. He helped them win a couple of cups. If you're going to move a piece, if you're going to get a guy, I don't know if it's going to be a bottom six. I can see it from both sides. I see where you're saying, get a bottom six guy because you don't need much. But then I also look at it and I go, man, those bottom six guys that they have right now, I don't know if I would want to change something like that. So maybe you change one of the guys at the top thinking that somebody can bring a little bit something different come playoff time. Because I think one of the biggest worries that fans have, and I'm sure a lot of people out here go, it's great to have a good regular season, but what happens when you get to the playoffs and you need a little bit of that grit, a little bit of that sandpaper? It's one thing to go, we hope that guys like Cedric Paquette and other guys on this team take that next step, but if that doesn't happen, we're having the same conversation next year, there's going to be some people that are kind of worried, like, why didn't we make a move at all? So we'll see. And again, this is the reason why those guys get paid the big bucks in the front.
I know. I think back to a couple years ago in Pittsburgh when they made a move to get Phil Kessel at the trade deadline. At the time, I'm scratching my head like, Phil Kessel, like, you already have Sidney Crosby, you already have Malkin. Like, the offense for Pittsburgh really didn't need anything else. Yeah. You look at their blue line, and they really needed help defensively, and then they go out and get Phil Kessel, and you're thinking, well, that was a dumb move. They could have got a defenseman. And they went out and just pretty much kept possession of the puck for the entire game. And really didn't even need a blue line because of the way they were able to just keep possession and keep putting shots on goal, and they end up beating the Lightning in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Final and winning a Stanley Cup. So shows how much I know about some of these trades that are going down.
So we may not know about all the trades, but we do know that because of Brian Burns, Winnipeg Jet Scout is docked up at the Marriott. So that's the kind of information you get here on Bolts Breakdown. Brian Burns, beat writer for Tampa Bay Lightning.com. Corey Brown, no, we're not bringing back Jonathan Drouin. Not happening. Brian Burns, beat writer for Tampa Bay Lightning.com. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at BBurnsNHL. Follow the team at Tampa Bay Lightning.com. On Twitter at TB Lightning. Follow me at Recher. Follow the station at 95.3 WDAE. Go to 95.3WDAE.com for the best Bolts coverage. Game tonight on Fox Sports Sun at 7 o'clock. It's a little bit of an earlier start. And then also up the dial on our sister station, 970 WFLA. All right, guys, we'll take a 23.5-hour break?
Yeah, about.
We'll be back right here. We'll see you guys tomorrow on Bolts Breakdown.